It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, March 28th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful and amazing Tuesday? We've got current news from around the world, the practical word study, and of course, Provi in the media. Whew. Hey guys, how are you doing today? Yes, it is Tuesday. I hope you guys are enjoying your week so far. Yeah, I'm a little bit, I'm still kind of a little under the weather. I don't have as much energy as I had before, but I am always up for making this podcast, and I'm just very grateful and thankful for everyone out there that's listening and for all your feedback and comments. And it's something that I'm so happy and so thankful to God that we're really building a community. Like, no one knew that we're going to build all this for this very moment, but we can see that all that hard work over the last 3 years has built up to this very time. And it just makes me even more thankful that we're just all the effort put in by everyone, whether you're listening, whether you're commenting, whether you're liking, all these are different things. I am super grateful and thankful for everyone. Just remember that Q&A Thursday's a couple days away, so get your questions ready for this week. Go ahead and send it to me. I would love to go over those questions too. And anything. It could be about any situation, and I definitely want to, be open to answer all questions that people have, all right? Like I said before, very, very thankful for everyone out there in MSD land, just feeling the support of the community. And I really feel that we are doing better and better because of this community and because we're able to work together, read each other's comments, get the encouragement that we give to each other also. And that is something that even for me, like while I'm sick right now, I can feel so much love from you guys, like from your comments, your posts, people DMing me and stuff like that, just saying that I'm praying for you. And that is something that I think this is what we need in a community. But of course, it'd be great. The best community is one where you can meet physically and stuff like that. But of course, we're in this digital realm where it's quite amazing how we have people in like 14 different countries all communicating and contacting each other too. So I'm super thankful for this also. There's actually, one thing I did want to talk about today is one comment that did catch my attention. It's from Ralph. And he wrote that one of the most recent things that Sunseem said is we need to raise adults of faith. Right, raising adults of faith is one of the most recent things that Sunseem said, and for me, that one just really struck me. I'm like, raising adults of faith, right? And that's what needs to be happening right now. For those of you guys who don't know who Ralph is, he was one of my pastors when I first was a newcomer. So he's old school. He actually taught me the word when I was a newcomer in 1998. I think it was September 19. No, not even September. When was it? It was like January 1998, January or February. I think it's February. No, it was January. And I was a newcomer in 1998, super fiery, passionate. And I'll tell you guys how amazing he is. He would come off a graveyard shift at Kinko's, and he would get off at like 7:30 a.m. and come directly to my university to teach me at 8:30 a.m. It was, I didn't really know until later, but it was incredible what he did for me. So I am always grateful and thankful to him. But I love the comment. The comment is what we need to, what Sunseem's talking about now is raising adults of faith, right? And what does that mean? And I think that's a question. Like if this is one of the goals that Sunseem has for all of us here, being in this history, raising adults of faith, I think people need to really think about what that means. What does it mean to be an adult of faith? Right? Raising adults in faith is what Sunseem really wants from us. But if that's what he wants, then us too, as people of faith, we should be thinking to ourselves as well, what does that look like? What is an adult in faith? Right? Because if we don't know what we're aiming for, we're just going to kind of, go with the flow, and it might happen or it might not. But when he says you want to be an adult in faith, that's what we really want, then that's something we have to think about. What's our aim? What's our goal? What does that really mean? Right? So once we have that goal or that visual, right? That vision of, this is what an adult of faith looks like, then it's very, very easy for us to form and become like that. So it's just like in the world. In the world too, when someone says be an adult, in our hearts and our minds, we can visualize what an adult is, right? You can tell the difference between a child and adult, the things that a child complains about, the thing that an adult will complain about, the things that, how a child reacts compared to how an adult reacts, right? There's a lot of things when we say, yeah, if you're an adult, you wouldn't do that. Yeah, if you're an adult, you wouldn't do that either, right? And I thought that was something that we should all be thinking about also. It's like, oh man, if we're going to be adults of faith, where are we supposed to land? Like, where are we supposed to be where Sunsteam says, yeah, this is it. These guys, they've become adults of faith, right? So 2 words come to mind when I think about an adult. Number 1 is maturity, and number 2 is responsibility. And I'm not going to say that this is the only definition, but these are 2 things that I think that they're very, very easy words that I can focus on to help me when it comes to spiritual matters, right? So when I think about maturity, right, in the world, someone who's mature doesn't panic, doesn't freak out when something just pops out of nowhere, like, oh my gosh, this just happened. And then you have the immature people going to be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then they start freaking out, and then they freak out the next person. But when you see a mature person, I was reading this leadership course, they said, imagine there's a fire, imagine you're in a room and there's a fire that starts in the corner, right? So what happens is most people are going to panic. Some will jump out the window. People rush to the door, and it'll be so crowded, like people start getting injured, right? But you'll have that one leader, that one mature person will say, everyone calm down. Guys, it's just a small fire in the corner. Make a single file to the right side, away from the fire. Get away from the windows. All right, let's march out one by one so no one gets hurt. I'll be last to leave, so please don't, please calm down, right? And when you hear someone like that, you're like, oh, that guy's mature, right? They didn't freak out just because there was a fire. When someone screams fire, everyone starts running. Someone screams bomb, everyone starts running away, right? So when you look at this, you're like, oh, so what does it mean adult in faith? If you're a mature adult, like if you're an adult, you're mature. So what does it mean mature in faith, right? Well, faith has to do with what I believe in. So if something comes to shake my faith, or some disaster comes to make my faith waver, someone who is mature is not going to freak out or panic and just be like, oh, that's interesting. I'd like to hear more about this. Or it's like, oh, all right, I'm sorry to hear that you said this. I'll look into this more. And they're not going to freak out, and they stay very calm. They listen to everything first. They don't react to the situation. Instead, they discern and assess the situation first. Right? And I would have to say one of the big things that a mature person never does is makes a hasty decision or choice. Especially big decisions, Like in the world, when you're buying a car, it's a big decision. And it's a lot of money. And you can't make a hasty decision on that just because you like the interior leather and it's white, but it costs an extra $7,000 or whatever it is. You can't make a decision based on that. Especially big decisions, right? And in the same way, too, when it comes to our faith, and it's a big decision about our faith, something that happens like what's happening right now, the mature person, the adult of faith, is not going to be like, oh my gosh, is that right? Oh, it's true, really? Why is it true? Oh, because you said it's true? Okay, I'm leaving my faith. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? To be shaken that much over something that you just heard from someone else. You know what I mean? And even if they're trying to show you some type of like evidence, the mature person is going to look at the evidence properly, not just like listen to a narrative of what someone says. They're going to listen to it. Oh, well, like if someone tells me like, and then and this is what Sunsteam was thinking at this time, and I'd be like, how do you know he was thinking that? How do you know? Right? Well, and then he did this. I'm like, well, it only looks bad if you look at it from your perspective, from that perspective. From that perception, it looks bad. But if you don't see it from that perception, then it doesn't look bad. You can kind of put a narrative on anything. And that's why the mature people don't react to a situation. They discern and assess the situation really well. They never make a hasty decision or choice, especially big decisions. Like, that's your life. Faith is a lifestyle. It's the way that you live, the way that you believed, right? And if anything, people like to be around those that are mature. Like people don't like those that people don't want to always have heart attacks every time something, I remember this one time where, someone came in and was freaking out because when I was in Korea at the Lord's Church at that time, someone's mother came in, right? Really upset and angry. And the person came, oh my gosh, guys, we got to get out of here because the person's mom is here. And, at that time, the pastor said, hey, calm down. You're giving me a heart attack. We don't know how bad it is. And then when that parent came in, the pastor talked to them, sat them down, had a very calm conversation. And in the end, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Broke down the misunderstandings and talked to them about this and that. And it just ended like that. But if you come in like, oh my gosh, this is what's happening right now, then what happens is it becomes that really crazy situation, right? So, people like to be around those that are mature because it's not chaotic. It's not like frantic and emotional and people are freaking out here and there. And, usually the mature people aren't the ones calling you like this. Hey, did you hear? Yeah, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. This is so crazy. And already there, you're like inciting fear. Okay, you gotta listen to this. This is nuts, And that's kind of a way where people who are less mature are going to be, reacting in this way, where sometimes you're just reacting to what other people are saying about a certain situation, and it's their take on that situation also. I think it's very, very good that that one comment really stirred my mind up. Like, oh, what does it mean to be an adult in faith, right? The second one that came to me is responsible, and I think this is one of the biggest ones that you could tell an adult is truly an adult, right? I think it's one of the best characteristics of an adult is responsibility. No matter how difficult something gets, they continue to do their responsibility. That's an adult, right? Like when you have someone who is super responsible, you never worry about this person not getting their responsibilities done, right? So take a look at the situation right now. When this situation developed, did you stop your responsibilities? Like you're not even sure what's true and what's wrong, but then you just stopped everything. Like why would you stop when you're not even sure? Right? That means that every time, so think about this. If you're not even sure about something and you stop your responsibilities because you're not sure, that means that every time something pops up, you're going to stop your responsibility. Oh, I'm not sure. I just heard this. Imagine think about this from the worldly perspective too. Imagine working in the world. You have a worker that works underneath you, and that worker constantly stops their responsibility every time there's a dip in the stock market, every time there's a boss or worker that didn't treat them well, every time they fought with their family or with their girlfriend or their friends or boyfriend, whatever it is. Every time something like this happens, what do? They stop their responsibility. Would you keep hiring that person or would you let them go? Right? That's completely irresponsibility. Right? Think about even parents with children. Imagine parents did that to their children every time they didn't feel like it. Oh, I'm really struggling with this. No. I heard this this quote from 50 Cent, right? A rapper 50 Cent now. He's like a billionaire, right? And he said, depression is a luxury. And he said, think about this. If you're out on the streets and you're providing for a family, you have no time to be depressed. You got to go out and work. There's no such thing as I don't feel like it. There's no such thing as I feel down on myself. When you have big responsibilities, there's no such thing, right? As, oh no, I don't know. So then maybe I'm going to just stop what I do, right? And I'm going to tell you this. I've heard of some situations like this where some head leaders stop preaching because they're so mad because of the situation that's happening right now, right? And it's like, why would you do that's the time where people need their leader the most. You know what I mean? Right? So it's like, wow, that's so weird. Like what in that situation, isn't that the time where people are seen as the real leader in the most difficult times? Right? And that's, for me that's not responsibility. People need when it comes to you doing your things, being responsible, that's one of the big things I look at as maturity. Right? We've been raised in this history, and we've been raised for 45 years. And the question is it time to be adults now? Right? We've been raising adults in faith. Have we reached that point? And I'm going to tell you that sometimes we are mature and we're ready. It's just that we never had the time to show it. And that's why when situations like the one we're in right now, it kind of forces you to become an adult. You have a choice. No, well, there's no choice actually in this situation. You either grow up fast or like a child, you get so devastated, you eventually can't handle anything, you leave. When I look at someone who's an adult of faith, look at the Bible. Look at someone like Abraham, okay? God told me he'll have a child at 100, and he believed it. And then even on top of that, later on, he's willing to sacrifice his child. Like, that's pretty crazy. Do you know how ludicrous that sounds to the world? Like, you know, can you imagine how much faith he needs when the whole world is like, what the heck is wrong with you? But he had absolute faith. The world says it's impossible to have a child at that age. The world says don't kill your son because you can't have another one after 100. Abraham says, if God gave me a child at 100, why can't he give me another one at 115, at 120? One of the things that we have to understand when it comes to adult of faith, it's different than the adult of the world, because faith and the world don't really mix well together, right? In 1 John chapter 5, verse 4, it says, for everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith, right? If we're born of God, we have to overcome the world when the world comes against us. You know, our fight, you know, when it comes to faith itself, and this is for not just Providence, this is the whole world when it comes to people and their faith and what they believe. The world comes against your faith. Look at how many times people say bad things about Christianity. How many people say bad things about people of faith, or Jesus is not true, or whatever it is. The world tries to prove our faith wrong. The world tries to say bad things about about Jesus, right? They try to say bad things about Jesus, that Jesus had a secret family. You know, that's from Da Vinci Code, and then all this stuff came out during that time. People say all types of things, and then they'll come up with different types of proofs. But we need to know that our faith, being an adult in faith is different than being an adult in the world. Because if you're just an adult in the world, you'll look at Abraham and think, that's not responsible. You're not going to have another child after 100. You just had a child at 100. That's a miracle, but guess what? You ain't getting another one, so why would you sacrifice your own child? That is the faith. That is adults in the world. They can't believe the things of faith. They can't. When you look at the world's not going to understand what like concepts like Messiah, concepts like pre-dawn prayer. And the thing that's kind of very interesting, I talked about this before, is people in the world are going to have a very, very hard time understanding people of faith because it's two different worlds, right? And what God is not telling us to be adults of the world, because if you only stay an adult of the world, you cannot believe most of the things of faith. It's too hard. And this is why we need to understand really well. Yeah, that's a great quote that I loved from the comments is, it is time to raise adults of faith. Adults of faith understand what the world is like, understand the power structure of this world, but we also understand there is someone who is above all these. It's God. And the world is underneath God's feet. Why? Because God created. It's God's creation. It's underneath God. And this is why, as adults of faith, our trust moves towards God. We trust in God, just like the early Christians trusted God when they were being rounded up and killed for their faith by the world. Right? Just like Jesus, who was convicted in the courts of the world and crucified, he trusted in God. Just like Joseph, sold by his brothers, unjustly sent to prison on false charges, trusted in God. Just like Moses, constantly slandered every time there were difficulties, trusted in God. Just like David, as a teenager, faced Goliath and defeated him by trusting in God. Just like Job, who never went against God, but lost everything. Disease, pain, suffering, children, family, friends. We're going through right now what every main character in the Bible is going through. And this is why these biblical figures are in the Bible, because they overcame the greatest tribulation in faith. It's coming from the world. And all of us too, we're going to be recognized, not because we did a prayer condition. for 21 days, 110 days, not because we went out and evangelized. No, it's because we overcame the greatest tribulation. We will overcome the most difficult moment in Providence history. Everyone doubting, everyone saying otherwise, everyone not sure, uncertain, waiting and seeing to see what the answer is. But people of faith are different. We need to look at ourselves. And I think even if we're not exactly ready yet to be adults of faith, it's kind of like these stories where someone's parents die really early, and then at 15 years old, they got to take care of their family. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that, where you have to grow up quick, or else you just die, right? If that 15-year-old boy has a younger sister who's 9 years old, if his parents die, he's got to go get a job. He's got to work. He's got to make sure that there's food on the table. He's got to grow up really fast, or else they die, right? So I really hope too that like that. I thought that was a great comment from Ralph, and I like these little reminders of the words that are given, because it's like that's what we need. That's what we got. What's our aim? What's our goal? In this time right now, we've got to grow up, and we got to become adults of faith. Can't start just because someone calls you, starts telling you stuff. What does that mean? How do you know it's true? How did you check it? Right? You got to be adults. So I hope it's something that all of us can think about a little bit more deeply too in our lives right now, because we're asked to grow up really quick right now, right? Where some of us might have been too reliant, say on like KJS and stuff like that too. We might have been way too reliant, waiting for someone to do it for us, right? We got to grow. We got to become adults. And I think it's a great question. Either way, today, Provi in the Media, I did want to go over a new article from Massimo Introvigne, a sociologist in religion, and he's going to talk about brainwashing, is like the myth and reality of brainwashing. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is what the courts are trying to assess right now. But I do want to get into the history of it, and I did leave the link in the description below too. So we'll get into that for the Provi in the Media at the very, very end. Okay. So the poll is already out, guys. I did post it up a little bit late by mistake, but it's about how has this situation changed your faith, and it has everything to do with what I talked about today. Have you become more convicted? Has your faith changed? Has your faith not changed? Little shaken, confused, don't know what to believe. Others, there's a lot of different things out there, but would love to hear your honest opinion. And it doesn't mean that that's where you stand. It just means that that's where you start the struggle. Like, hey, this is what's happening with my faith right now. However, this is what I'm hoping for the future, and this is what I'm hoping will make me even better. This is what I want to change also, and stuff like that too. Okay. So that poll, definitely a great poll to look at too. All right, so let's get into some music from member artists from around the world. So let's start off with a brand new song that just dropped from Wings over there in Korea. It's a short song, but it's really, really good. Hope you guys enjoyed this. This is Wings with We Are. And then after that, we have Renee Lai from Taiwan with an Alin remix. And then after that, of course, we have Somebody Boys from America with Better.
It's blowing day by day. Yeah. 지나간 터널처럼 It was a big deal, I swear, yeah. 겁나고 두려웠지. There's all water under the bridge now. 정확히 어디는지조차 이젠 가물가물. 흉터는 남았어도 더 이상 아프잖아. 역경은 항상 지나기 전엔 태산 같아. 한치 앞을 내다볼 수 없는 작은 먼지 같은 우리. But we are, we are, we are. Yes, we are, we are, we are. 내 작은 몸만에 가장 큰 하늘을 담아. 꿈꾸는 걸 멈추기에 넌 남아갔거든. Yes, we are. 정말 평범해 보여. Yes, me. 내가 봐도 그래. Nothing special, honestly. Yeah. 다 그렇게 거지 뭐 비범하는 원래 평범함 속에 감춰져 있어야 재밌지 내 멋쟁아린 같잖아도 생각만큼 비범하게 Yes we are, we are, we are Yes we are, we are, we are 내 작은 몸만 내 드넓은 바다를 담아 꿈꾸는 걸 멈추기에 난 막았거든 Yes we are It's you and I Guess who we are 우리 수고만 아직 그동안 가는 동안 이점 변은 없었지만 내 안을 비우고 한겨울 가득 채워 내 안 가득 찬 하늘을 밖으로 비춰보여 우리가 다른 이유 우리 안에 there is a diamond 우린 다 똑같은 사람이지만 본질은 안에 있어 본질을 한 바퀴 잊지 않아 We are, we are Yes we are, we are, we are 내 작은 몸만 내 빛나는 우주를 담아 꿈꾸는 걸 멈추기에 난 막았거든 Yes we are
浪花做的啤酒海，温柔做的沙好白，不穿鞋子的脚踝，快乐能信手拈来。晒，跟着我一直走，遇见在过山不回头，陪着我一直走，和人生握握手。抬起头走走走更远，去看看星河的上游，心没有路也没尽头，一起去吹风，一直走。抬起头走走走更远，向这个世界变不同，心没有路也没尽头，界限我就要继续走。最好灌溉，什么都不必介怀。拜，脱掉束缚活过来，什么都信手拈来。晒，抬起头走走走更远，去看看性感的上游，心没有路也没尽头，一起去吹风，一直走。世界变不同，心没有路也没尽头，界限我就要继续走。跟着我一直走，遇见在过山不回头，陪着我一直走，和人生握握手。世界变不同，心没有路也没尽头，界限我就要继续走。不问为什么一直走，冒着泡的啤酒海，今天应该很愉快。晒，
I can't believe it when I'm with you, love. I can't believe it that we even talk. I don't know how it's real. I don't know how you feel. I wish I wasn't flawed, I don't mean to.
'cause you deserve better and you know it. But don't let me go. Please don't let me go. I'm wrong, I'm flawed, I'm not the perfect person that you want, but I'm strong, I'll make myself better for you.
I know I have a lot of bad moments, but I pray you still see the good in me. Everything that I've done to get here, I got a lot of things to work and see. I know that I messed up, something I say time and time again, over and over again. Always saying that I wanna do better, I keep pushing back again. But now I'm making the effort to show you I'm making it better. Made up my mind to get it together and become perfect no matter the pressure. Okay. I know in the past that I love you way better, and now it hurts knowing that I could do better. Let's talk about this for you deserve better.
I'm wrong, I'm flawed, I'm not the perfect person that you want, but I'm strong, I'll make myself better for you. I'll overcome myself again. I'll always make myself again. I won't quit, no, I won't quit. I'm wrong, I'm flawed, I'm not the perfect person that you want, but I'm strong, I'll make myself better for you. Better for you. Better for you.
And that was Sumney Boys from America with the song Better. Before that was Renee Lai from Taiwan with the Alin remix. And of course, brand new song just dropped from Dio Wings over there in Korea with the song We Are. All right. So let's get into some news going on around the world. And as brides of this history, we ultimately have the big responsibility to make sure that we pray for the world and repent for the world, but we need to know what is going on. So let's first start off with what's going on over there in Israel as more mass Israel protests happen after Netanyahu fires his defense minister. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets across Israel after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fired his defense minister. Yoav Gallant had spoken out against the controversial plans to overhaul the justice system, and in Jerusalem, police and soldiers used water cannon against demonstrators near Mr. Netanyahu's house. Early on Monday morning, Israel's President Isaac Herzog called on the government to halt the reforms, and he said, "For the sake of the unity of the people of Israel, for the sake of responsibility, I call on you to stop the legislative process immediately." He said on Twitter, adding that the eyes of all the people of Israel are on you. The U.S. also said it was deeply concerned about the developments and called for a compromise. A week of disruption had already been planned over the new law, and the reforms include plans that would give the government full control over the committee, which appoints judges. So that is continuously going on. And if you guys know even more about the situation, it's something it's basically a government with no checks and balances, which is going to be, which gives them unlimited power, which also allows them to be a lot more corrupt too. Let's go over to Germany. Two strikes bring Germany's public transport network to a halt. Germany's transport network will be at a near standstill on Monday as two of the country's largest unions strike. Staff at airports, ports, railways, buses, and subways walked out shortly after midnight for a 24-hour stoppage. Unions are demanding higher wages to help their members cope with the rising cost of living across the country. There have been multiple smaller walkouts by other public service sectors, but Mondays will be the largest in decades in the country. The two unions involved in the strike are among the largest in Germany. So the first one's called Verdi, and they have 2.5 million employees across the public sector, including in public transport and at airports. And then the second one is called EVG, which represents about 230,000 employees at Deutsche Bahn, Germany's national rail operator, and other bus companies. And they hope it will increase pressure on employers ahead of another round of pay negotiations on Monday. The chief of Verdi, the union, described the pay rise as a matter of survival for many thousands of employees, according to local media. Right? And one thing we do know is around the world, inflation is so crazy at the moment that a lot of people, what they were able to buy in the past, their earning power has dropped because inflation is so high at the moment. So let's hope that they can get that resolved quickly as possible. Last but not least, we'll go to North Korea. And once again, they're firing ballistic missiles after protesting U.S. drills. North Korea's 7th missile event this month comes after it claimed to have tested a nuclear-capable underwater attack drone. North Korea has fired 2 ballistic missiles into the sea off its east coast, according to the South Korean military, after protesting joint military drills by the United States and South Korea. The South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles were fired from North Korea's Hwanghae province shortly before 8 a.m. local time on Monday, and the Japanese government said the projectiles are believed to have fallen outside of Japan's exclusive economic zone. It also lodged a strong protest, with North Korea saying the neighboring country's missile launches threaten the safety and peace of Japan, the region, and the international community. The launches were North Korea's 7th missile event this month and underscore heightening military tensions in the region as the pace of both Pyongyang's weapons tests and the U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises has accelerated in recent months in a cycle of tit-for-tat responses. The Allies completed their most extensive springtime exercises in years last week, but North Korea is expected to further step up its testing activity as the U.S. moves an aircraft carrier group to the peninsula this week for another round of joint drills. North Korea was already coming off a record year in weapons testing, having launched more than 70 missiles in 2022. So there it is, guys. That's the top 3 news around the world. Hope it's something that helps you guys out when it comes to your prayer time. You guys hear me breathing heavy, right? It's because I can't help it. Because I'm sick. For some reason, I have shortness of breath. I think that's normal, right? Huh. And, I talk a lot. I usually talk like this too, but yeah. Oh, interesting. There you go. I'm going to hyperventilate on this podcast. All right. Let's get into some sporting news going on around the world. We'll start with some soccer news. And the Euros are going on right now. And a couple big games. Portugal defeats Luxembourg 6-0. And it's Ronaldo with another 2 goals to extend his international goal-scoring record. He's got to score as much as he can before, so that Messi doesn't catch up to him. Also, England defeats the Ukraine 2-0. Iceland defeats Liechtenstein 7-0. Slovenia defeats San Marino 2-0. Italy beats Malta 2-0. Finland beats Northern Ireland 1-0. And Slovakia defeats Bosnia-Herzegovina 2-0. In NBA news, of course, the West has the big race for the play-in. And number 7, Minnesota, plays against number 6, Golden State, and Minnesota wins 99-96. And now they're only a half game behind Golden State for the 6th seed. So that's something that's going to be a huge possibility right there. The Lakers lose to Chicago 118-108, and they drop to the 9th seed. Last but not least, we have March Madness. The Final Four is now set as Miami defeated Texas 88-81 and San Diego State defeated Creighton 57-56. The Final Four is set. It's Miami versus UConn and San Diego State versus Florida Atlantic. So very odd Final Four. Like, you don't see any of the powerhouse teams like they were before, but yeah, very, very odd. But let's see how this happens. I'm sure no one got this Final Four right. I'm pretty sure no one got this one right. Like, they have these brackets where if you guess all the winners, you get $1 billion. And the chances of getting it is, they said it's astronomical, like, to win that much. Either way. So there it is, guys. That is the top 3 news in sports around the world. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. But you know what that means. It is the golden time. And yes, this is the golden time, a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. Hope all of you guys are looking forward to giving glory to God and the Holy Spirit. So, what are we going to praise and worship today? We're going to start off with the new songs of the Lord and then grab hold of the heart, and we'll break things down with the path of love. So, as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
the Lord's great new songs, the word overflows with the Lord and the Trinity. We've fulfilled heaven's will. Only through love all was fulfilled. Now my spirit holds the wedding feast up in heaven. Through the Lord all was revealed. After 6,000 years, it's the true history of the Lord. The Spirit holds the Lord tightly in both of her arms. This is the 1,000-year history. Love is ours evermore. From the Lord's great new songs, the word overflows with the Lord and the Trinity. We've fulfilled heaven's will. Only through love all was fulfilled. Now my spirit holds the wedding feast up in heaven. Through the Lord all was revealed. After 6,000 years, it's the true history of the Lord. The Spirit holds the Lord tightly in both of her arms. This is the 1,000-year history. Love is ours evermore. The Spirit holds the Lord tightly in both of her arms. This is the 1,000-year history. Love is ours evermore.
Fire will burn, water will flow, people's hearts to burn up like blood and flow away. When your heart's left alone, it goes to waste, thoughts end in vain. Your heart flows away. Now grab your heart and control your deeds. Lead them on to love, lead them to the Lord, pressing on towards that goal. No more God, Spirit, Son, work like this too. Their hearts will flow away. Their hearts will burn and
Since I have come, you've come as well. And today we become one with God, one with the Spirit. We unite on this path of love. We must walk now and for all eternity. This path will never change. Hear the word flows without end. Proudly we go on, always for providence. Now and always hope will shine brighter than the sun. This eternal love and hope forever shines bright. Finally, this love of ours fulfilled God's will at last. The Lord our God's promises will not fail, they will stand without change, now and for all eternity. Finally, this love of ours fulfilled God's will at last. The Lord our God's promises will not fail, they will stand without change, now and for all eternity. Since I have come, you've come as well. And today we become one with God, one with the Spirit. We unite on this path of love. We must walk now and for all
And that was The Path of Love. Before that, Grab Hold of the Heart and the New Songs of the Lord. I hope you guys really enjoyed that time of praise and worship. And it's something that you guys can take into heart and prepare ourselves, especially as we go into today's practical word study. So, excuse me. Practical word study this week, it's a little bit, I was trying to think about what's the best way to work on, let's just say, the righteous shall live by faith, right? And it's about living by faith, but also one of the things that the message this week's focuses on is being a righteous person. And I do think a big self-check on yourself, are you a righteous person, is something that you do need to check yourself with, right? And I do think that it's very, very interesting when we look at the definition of a righteous person in this time period. It's number one is absolute belief. Like you believe in God, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity. Like that's something that is a must, 100%, right? So there's number one. Number two is believe in Jesus, who has come back again, right, in spirit. And that's something like, okay, so that's an easy one too. And then, of course, for this time period, and also believe in the one that he has sent. Okay, and and then, of course, when you have like, believe in the Holy Trinity, believe in Jesus and Jesus and his body, and then, of course, believe the words and take action on it, right? And this kind of the self-check. And I think it's quite interesting because you can see and check yourself on those like different points and where you are the weakest, right? And like, for instance, several people that I've talked to, where are people the weakest? For some people right now, the weakest point, kind of check yourself first. I don't want to like put you into a box or anything like that, but everything we hear right now and all the checklist I just gave you right now, this is actually not something that's new, right? So I'm sure all of us, like, remember the time of the rapture? Wasn't it the exact same thing? Believe in God, believe in the one that he sent, right? And believe in God, believe in the one that he sent, and believe in the words to put them into action. Like that was the key to rapture too. Like that is kind of the number one way to check, are you a righteous person? Are you the person where you should be at this time? So it's exactly the same. There's nothing really, nothing's really changed in that definition ever, right? The only thing that's changed is the circumstances around us. That's it, right? And this is why it's such a clear message from this week's message. The clear message is, know the words clearly, then you will not be shaken, right? So, are these, was this definition of a righteous person not there before? And the answer is nope, it's always been here. So it's not like we're trying to like reinforce like, hey, remember, you have to believe in the one that God sent just because of the situation right now. It's like, nope, this has been around for decades, for 45 years, right? So this hasn't changed at all. It's just the circumstance around us has changed, right? So that's why we really, really need to know the words clearly. So what would be the point where people do you think would be weakest in right now of those like 3-4 points? Believe in the Holy Trinity, believe in Jesus who came back again in spirit, believe in the one God sent, and then, listen to the words and put them into action. And obviously, I would say right now, because of the current situation, believing in God part is easy. Believing in Jesus is easy, right? I think the hardest part for a lot of people might be, well, what about the person he sent? That seems to be the hardest at this moment in time. And that's going to kind of be the hint is, depending on what time you're at, different parts will be different things to struggle about, right? For instance, in the past, there was, sometimes there was this one point where there was another group saying that we got the word first, and then some people might have at that point started struggling about, oh, is this really the word that Sunstein received? Is this really the word, or did he receive from somewhere? Like, it really depends on what time you're coming from, right? And that's something that you have to understand very well. Is it's not so much the words have changed. We've heard this all of our lives. Sometimes it's just the circumstance changes that we start to Satan targets a different part of that we say, oh, I never thought about this, and then people start to doubt and stuff, too. So what I'm going to tell you now is, when we look at this, like for me, is I look at this mental exercise like, yeah, but what if you struggle with the one that God sends because of the situation going on right now? Like, even though you're saying that you're going to struggle with different things at different times, different situations, but how do we deal with it? So what I would do is I always look a step above, and even more one step above that too. Now, what does that mean? So we know that the Holy Son lesson says that the man that is sent, who is the body, is just the body. Without God, he's nothing, right? Obviously. So, without being united with God, could you be divine? No. If Moses wasn't one with God, could he know about the 10 plagues? No, he couldn't. Could he have split the Red Sea? No, he couldn't have done that either, right? Without God, Moses is nothing, right? So that's why you want to look one step above. Right? So it's like, oh, okay, so then you have like Jesus using him, or you have the Holy Trinity using the one that God sends, right? So the next question that I do get a lot from people is, well, even though God uses human beings, his bodies, people will start referencing things like King David or Solomon or Moses or all these people that made mistakes in their life, right? So that all of a sudden they'll just start saying, well, it's possible today because remember, all these central figures made mistakes in the past too, right? So it's possible to make a mistake. And the answer is yes and no, right? What does that mean, right? So the one argument they're going to have and just going to say, well, look at all these other central figures that made mistakes, right? And the thing that is wrong about the comparison is comparing by mission. Remember, central figures are not all the same mission. There are 4 levels of central figures. And the one at the very top, who is the one at the very top? It is the one that begins new time periods. And that's completely different than everyone else in between, right? How solid and how powerful, how clean and solid that first person absolutely has to be, right? So then someone would say to me, well, what do you mean? Like, shouldn't a central figure is a central figure? Shouldn't they all be the same, right? But then you're also saying then that means Jesus did it too. That Jesus can do all those things. And you're like, no, because what? Yeah, it's like, so when we say, no, Jesus is perfect, right? Jesus, someone's not going to make that mistake. So how do I differentiate between those that start the time period and those that are inside the time period? And why are they different? So one thing I'll show you is that in historically, God cannot have someone who has this type of sin, especially when it comes to being unclean in the fall, to start the time period, right? How do I know? Well, who's the first one to start the time period? It was Adam. And the moment he fell, history collapsed. It couldn't start anymore. It ended at that point, right? But then you can't compare Adam to David, right? Because David did it. David did commit the fall too. He committed adultery and stuff like that also. But then history didn't fall apart then, right? It's a big difference between the person who is starting the time period, someone who is at that level of central figure, right? If you look at Adam, he had to be absolutely clean to start the time period, but he could not do it, and that's why 1,600 years of silence, right? And that's why I'm telling you right now, you can't, even though, yes, central figures do make mistakes, however, you cannot just compare them across the board because there are 4 different levels of central figures, and the one that especially starts the new time period is at that high level of a central figure that they must be clean, especially in that area, right? And that's why we know Jesus is clean. Jesus started the time period. There were no problems or anything else because he was clean and it went on. In the same way, too, we have to know that is the same with this time period, that's new time period that just started. It cannot start with someone who is unclean in that area, right? It has to, if it was okay, then history should have began even after Adam committed the fall. It should have just continued. But it didn't, right? Because it is the starting point. Starting point has to be absolute and clean, right? So that's why when you look at this, when you're looking at, when you understand the words really well and you understand the words clearly, right? Someone can say to you straight off the top and say like, well, look at David. David made a mistake and then he went, and well, they are true in saying that David made the mistake, and they're true in saying that David is a central figure, but it is not true comparing him to Jesus, comparing him to Adam, comparing him to the person who starts the new time period. You cannot compare them, right? And that's just the difference between someone who knows the word really well and someone who just knows the word, right? And that's why when I'm talking about this, practical word study, like we got to go deep into it, right? If we don't go deep into it, we might what's that word? You might trap yourself into thinking that it's true. You might trap yourself because like, oh my gosh, it's true. Oh, they're both such a thing. No, right? And that's why you need to know the words really, really deeply and really well. And if you don't know them well, that's when you kind of start making these bigger and bigger the mistakes, right? What was the point of this check right here? The self-check is, where are you weakest in those 4 points when it comes to being a righteous person? Is it you believing in the Holy Trinity, in Jesus who's returned in spirit, in the man that God has sent, or the words and putting into action, right? So I hope it's something that it helps you guys out with that too, as a good word study for today, right? I would also say the second thing that's a very good thing to look at, and just another easy way to do a self check to see how righteous you are, to see is take a look at your actions. Okay, look at your actions and the way that you live your life. All right, and one thing that the word tells us is your actions are based on your faith. Your actions are based on your faith. You're like, oh, wow. So then if you really, truly, truly believe something, your actions will follow that belief, right? So that's why looking at your actions is like, you can tell a tree by its fruit. Your fruit are your actions. Look at your actions and you get to see how much you truly, truly believe, right? So then what if I want to have better actions? Well, if your actions are based on your faith, then I need better faith. Well, how do I get better faith? Well, this week's message says your faith is based on the word. It's all based on the word, which means sometimes it's a matter of us going back deeper into the word once again. A lot of times we get distracted by all the different things that are going on in our life, all the different things that are going on around us, that we forget about the words. The words are the key. It's the basis. It's the foundation of where our faith comes from, right? If our actions are based on our faith and our faith is based on the words, then if you want your actions to get better, you need to know the words that much more deeply. That's as simplest as it gets. Starts with the word. Your word creates your faith, and your faith creates your actions. All right? So I hope that this will help you guys out too when it comes to understanding a lot better about the things that are happening with your faith and such too. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the word study for today. Hope it's something that you guys really enjoyed, as I enjoy doing this and racking my brain over the word too, to make it more practical for all of us. So what does that mean? We're going to get to the final song for today. And I found this new group called The Worship Initiative. And I really like this song because one of the songs in this song is called Endless Hallelujah. But then it also goes into a song from Chris Tomlin way in the past called We Fall Down. I love that song too. So I hope that you guys will enjoy this. This is The Worship Initiative, We Fall Down. I'm sure a lot of you guys recognize that song at the end too, right? From Chris Tomlin. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed that song, that time of worship and praise, and it's something that can settle your hearts even more. Let's get into today's Provi in the media section, and this is a very, very cool article that was written by Massimo Intervigne. We've heard a lot about him. He has a 5-part series on brainwashing theories, the myth and the history of mind control, and it's a 5-part series. I will leave the link in the description. We'll kind of go over them step by step, like each section at a time. Today's first section is brainwashing, a false accusation against unpopular minorities, right? So that's what we're going to work on today. And then in other days, when I go over these other ones, we'll go over the other sections too. There's 5 sections to this, but I don't want to sit here for an hour just reading, like the entire article. So we'll do it step by step. Excuse me. All right, so let's get into today's first of a 5-part series on brainwashing, and this article is called "Brainwashing Theories: The Myth and the History of Mind Control." So let's start off with brainwashing, a false accusation against unpopular minorities. So we are at it again. New books are launched with great fanfare that revive old theories of brainwashing, and almost everybody from Donald Trump to Bill Gates is accused of using mind control techniques to gather followers. And of course, that they use brainwashing is an old accusation against groups discriminated and labeled as cults. Do these techniques exist? That the answer is no, is one of the key conclusions of the academic discipline of the study of new religious movements, NRM studies, right? So the answer is no. And this is a key conclusion from academic discipline of the study of new religious movements, right? That these techniques do not exist. So a tiny minority of scholars of religious movements with connections to the anti-cult activists rejected this conclusion, seceded from the majority, and created a different discipline of cultic studies. However, as Mike Ashcraft emphasized in his authoritative textbook on the academic study of new religious movements, while NRM studies are generally regarded as a legitimate part of the scholarly study of religions, cultic studies are not mainstream scholarship, right? So what Massimo Intravigne studies for new religious movement studies, that is a normal mainstream. And, all the studies show that there are no techniques that really exist for brainwashing, right? That's a key conclusion from academic discipline of the study, right? The problem is the people who started cultic studies did not agree, and they started their own kind of study group, right? Study of cults, right? So where does the origins of the brainwashing theory begin? But where do brainwashing theories come from? At first, I discuss the remote origins of brainwashing theories in subsequent chapters. I will explain how the idea that brainwashing was practiced by communists in Russia and China and how it got discredited. How it was applied to religions and cults was rejected by mainline scholars and courts of law, but now tries to come back. Humans tend to believe that some ideas and religions are so strange that nobody can embrace them freely. Romans believed that Christianity was such an absurd religion that those who had converted to it had been bewitched through black magic techniques. Chinese believed the same since the Middle Ages with respect to religions not approved by the emperor, including or initially Buddhism. These religions could not only gain converts through black magic. In Europe, when Christians became a state-supported majority, they adopted the same explanation for conversion to heretical faiths, such as the one preached by the Waldensians, which were in turn accused of bewitching their converts. After the Enlightenment, belief in black magic declined, but the idea that strange religions could not be joined voluntarily, but only through bewitchment, was secularized as hypnosis. Mormons in particular were accused of hypnotizing their victims into conversion. In the 20th century, ideas that some believed were so strange and dangerous that nobody could embrace them freely emerged in a field different from religion politics. German socialist scholars, at loss for an explanation of how not only the bourgeois but also workers and the poor could convert en masse to Nazism, spoke of mass hypnosis or mental manipulation. Later, with the Cold War, the same explanation was used in the United States why some can embrace such an absurd ideology as communism. So in the case of communism, the American Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, founded in 1947, believed they had found a smoking gun in techniques used in Chinese and North Korean communist jails and concentration camps against arrested Western missionaries and later American prisoners of war captured during the Korean War. American psychiatrists and psychologists such as Robert J. Lifton and Edgar Schein were asked to interview those who had been liberated from communist jails and camps. Their conclusions were very cautious as they noticed that, in fact, Chinese techniques had not converted many, and the majority of those who had signed declarations of allegiance to communism had done so to escape torture or mistreatment in jail and had not really been persuaded. They were also criticized for the psychoanalytic approach, and in the case of Lifton, for a libertarian idea of human agency that later led him to support the anti-cult movement. However, they maintained that Chinese mental manipulation techniques either worked in a very limited number of cases when they were accompanied by the use of mind-altering drugs and torture, or they did not work at all. The CIA, however, decided to present the thesis that people did not convert freely to communism in much simpler black and white terms, claiming in its propaganda that both the Chinese and Soviet communists had developed an infallible technique to change the ideas of their victims, like a vinyl disc was changed on a phonograph, right? And this is from the CIA director, Alan Welsh. Dulles explained in 1953. So the CIA instructed one of its agents, whose cover job was that of a journalist, Edward Hunter, to invent and spread the word brainwashing, presenting it as a translation of an expression allegedly used by the Chinese. In fact, the CIA and Hunter had taken the concept of brainwashing from the novel 1984 by George Orwell, where Big Brother washes clean the brains of the citizens of a fictional regime modeled after Soviet Russia. The idea that communists in China and Russia and communist spies in the West had mastered the techniques of brainwashing became immensely popular. And we can see its triumph in popular culture in the 1959 novel, The Manchurian Candidate, and its 1963 movie version starring Frank Sinatra and Angela Lansbury. Soon, however, the CIA itself had to admit that brainwashing did not work. And we'll see the rest of it. We'll see these developments in the next chapter. Okay, so it's kind of a good way to see how the origins of brainwashing actually began, how it was something that was spread as propaganda, and how a lot of the tests from real scholars and inside the community of psychology and also sociology, they look at it and say, well, when you look at the studies, it proves that it doesn't really exist. Like, their techniques don't even work. Right? And basically they said that the group that was against it are the ones that say that are the ones that started the cultic studies, right? So there is the mainline, there's a mainstream study of NRM, New Religious Movements, and that is accepted, and that's mainstream. And all other different scientists, psychologists, and sociologists will accept that. But cultic studies are not accepted. They're a fringe pseudoscience, right? But quite interesting just to hear some of the history behind it. Next time we will go over how the CIA tested brainwashing to find out that it didn't really work. Like all these things that they thought were real, but it didn't really work. All right. So there it is, guys. That is today's first part of brainwashing. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that. Something that you guys can read over. I did put the link with all 5 parts of it already there in the description below, so you guys can take a look at that also. All right. So there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Provi in the Media. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that, just as I have. Everyone, be calm, be cool, and let's do things until the very end of 2023. All right. Everyone, have a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive,